This information may be interpreted as science fiction or however the viewer decides. It is shared for entertainment purposes, although we take it with utmost importance. Class 10. ET Life and You. Why should you care?
Hi, this is Gosia, Space Academy here, and I'm welcoming you to this class from the city center, from the busy city center, and I think it's a very good way to start this video, because we are here surrounded by the people who I wonder if they are actually wondering about the life outside this planet. The question is, do you think they care? Do you think that the people around me think it even matters at all to know that we are not alone? Will it change their lives to know? They will still have to go around, go do their errands, go to work, pay their bills. So many of them are thinking, this doesn't concern me. Well, are they right? Here you are. Welcome. Nice to be back. It was quite cold down there, much comfier here. Let's get straight to it. Does knowing about the ET life matter? How does it affect ordinary people on Earth who go to work, spend time with their loved ones, worry about their bills and health, feel stressed out, with hundreds of tasks on their hands? Who really cares if there are ETs out there, right? My life is here, and it will be the same whether I'm aware of them or not. It's maybe something fun to think about for a while, but it doesn't change absolutely anything personally for me. This is how the majority of the mass population thinks. I may be wrong in the assumption of majority, since the ET subject is gaining popularity nowadays, but I would say it is still not something on the average person's mind. They have too many problems in their lives to find time to occupy themselves with what's going on in the lives of those we call extraterrestrials, somewhere else out there in space. The way the system has been designed on Earth and how the matrix works, it is quite understandable why people feel this way. It is constructed precisely this way, to have them locked in isolation and so utterly engrossed in what the controllers created and keep maintaining as their reality, that anything else reaching them from beyond that construct is quickly dismissed as crazy, ludicrous, or at best, curious but irrelevant. Okay, the truth is, the ET reality, becoming aware of it and what it means for this society, has a huge impact on absolutely everything this culture stands on, and as a result, on your particular life. And I believe it is time the citizens of this planet understood why. As we have explained in the previous episodes, we are living in a construct we refer to as the Matrix, an artificially created and sustained realm to keep the citizens of the planet in an imposed bubble of what's real and possible and what is not, and where their attention should flow. And that is work, everyday struggles, family, friends, entertainment, politics, and not much more. And even though life on Earth can be so many different things for different people, this is, however, the main core role the controllers keep the masses in, guiding their perception and values like a hive mind. One of the core principles on which this matrix has been sustained and how it defends itself is that we are alone in the universe. It is the absolute nucleus of the control system on Earth. The presence of extraterrestrials is the most guarded subject and secret all governments, superficial and deeper ones, have tried to keep the lid on for thousands of years. They fear for their lives for that secret to finally come out. That's why they have taken so much effort to program the collective to associate it only with science fiction, entertainment, craziness, and conspiracy theories. But why all this effort if the topic is so irrelevant anyway, as most people think, right? Who cares either way? Stop for a while and ponder what I will say next very carefully. The reason the Earth controllers, on all levels, fear so much for the truth about extraterrestrials to come out is because when it does, and it is coming out, and as everyone on the planet realizes we are not alone, it will eventually be the end, you heard right, the end, of the matrix control system as we know it, and which they treasure so much and wish to keep us in. Allowing one's mind to open enough to embrace ET life may not seem to be of any practical relevance at first, at a superficial glance. But it is essential as the stepping stone toward the dissolution of what we came to associate life on Earth with. And I am not referring here to many of its positive and beautiful aspects, but the exploitative ones. It expands you as a person, as it opens you up to wider perspectives about absolutely everything. But it also transforms our society on all levels, and that includes impacting your life as well, since you are obviously a part of it. The controllers know that if the mere existence of extraterrestrials, with all the rich and vast variety of them, is revealed to the public or made known to them by other means, it would mean the destruction of their cherished matrix paradigm. This is because it would cause all that the public believes is real and what defines the matrix on Earth to crumble under the vast and far more expanded reality, science, and cosmology that those extraterrestrials would inevitably bring along with them. For us here, it is very easy to see and understand that imposing and keeping the idea that humanity is indigenous to Earth is of primordial importance for keeping the integrity of its matrix, because if they accept that there is more humanity outside Earth, then humankind would automatically expand their minds, also wanting to break free from their controllers.
You may feel that, for you personally, knowing about the ETs changes nothing practically. But the reality is the whole world consists of yous, such as yourself, all forming a collective. If the truth about the ETs were ever massively revealed and accepted by that collective, and I mean the truth, not controlled crumbs leaked by the governments here and there, it would be a total game changer for the entire society on Earth. The matrix would crumble. Obviously not overnight, but it would have to. And that would strongly impact everyone in that collective. Positively, I would say. It's easy to think ET life has nothing to do with ours when it is not understood how closely it intertwines with what's happening on Earth. I explained some of that correlation in the previous class about the Galactic Federation. And it is easy to think our lives would feel no impact from awakening to ET reality if you are still ignorant of how related our affairs are to those happening off Earth. The truth is, there are many other humans and other ET races in space, and implications of that are huge. Everything on Earth starts and finishes with ETs and ET contact, and is based on intercultural extraterrestrial influences, politics, and interactions, whether we are aware of it or not. Mostly we are not aware, but that is how we have been programmed to view ourselves, isolated from the galactic community, in a cocoon, and only interpreting reality through concepts we know from within the bubble of the self-contained terrestrial matrix context. So do not worry if it takes time to process what we are doing here in Space Academy. Now, if you are ready to hear more, let's look at only some areas that ET life acknowledgement impacts. And hopefully you will understand how much it means for the rewriting of everything this society has been shaped around.
First, we have the concept of evolution, also creationism, and everything to do with how we officially know humankind came to be on this planet. If it is understood that we are not alone, it will obviously recreate the whole idea regarding Darwinism and our so-called origins. Surrounded by stellar people elsewhere in the universe, we most definitely did not evolve here. And it certainly tosses out the Church's idea of us having been designed by some divine figure on Earth. It also shatters ideas presented by more alternative sources, such as the Sumerian tablets, that refer to genetic modifications as the origin of the human race on this one planet. Genetically altered, yes, but not created. The officially accepted visions of how we came to be would need to be re-examined and expanded. The cosmology of the human race redefined. The perception of our universe and our place in it elevated to new levels. Technology, that is another area that will need to be addressed if we ever, as a society, finally understand we are not alone. If we are not, and what's even better, if positive and more open collaboration with stellar societies were possible, it would drive technologies into our society that have so far been hidden from the human race, or only leaked slowly according to the controller's interests. Non-human technologies have always been filtered to the cabal behind our backs to be mostly used against us, which is a whole other subject. But true, positive ET awareness would open up the possibility of technologies being made available for our benefit and well-being, not to our detriment. Becoming aware of the ET world also comes with opening ourselves up to alternative models by which to organize society. If ET people are out there, and if they were ever to interact with us more directly, we would certainly be exposed not only to new cosmologies and ways of viewing reality, but also to new medical and scientific advancements, and furthermore, more holistic and just ways to manage society. How shattering that would be to the current slave model most of us are under. To understand this further, I will briefly explain that stellar societies, most of them, are organized according to what they call holistic stepped political systems, loosely translated into our language, where the population is managed by a series of councils comprised of any individual who wishes to contribute, even children, and where society's resources are always abundant and distributed freely to all. There is no economy or money system as it is known on Earth, where only a few accumulate wealth while the rest of the population lives in scarcity. The way it is done on Earth is simply absurd, unjust, and plainly cruel, and it is one of the strongest mechanisms of control. Holistic societies in space, in many variants, are very old systems most commonly used by advanced interstellar races, and function in a way that provides equality to all their citizens in all ways. And no, this has nothing to do with socialism, where members of society live under a government dictating harsh rules. True stellar models do not have governments as such, and each person acts responsibly and according to the needs and ethics of society, which form the foundation of those societies. When understanding of ET life becomes more widely accepted, this could be one of the models to consider for our planet as well. What is especially exciting is the removal of scarcity and dependence on work that is often totally enslaving. Of course, there is work on other planets, but it is something one chooses out of passion, not out of the need for pure survival, with no time left to enjoy life. As one of my non-human friends explained when sharing this information, it is one of the best political models for a planet. It will remain an option as long as humanity in general, the masses, are ready for it. At this point, many things need to happen before it can be implemented. And humans must also have the opportunity to decide which political system best suits them.
As long as humanity is ready for it. And what does it mean, being ready?
Well, that could be the topic of a whole separate video. Maybe it will be. But it basically refers to the ethical, mental, and spiritual expansion of our society. Individuals such as yourself. And for that expansion to take place, you must first be aware of whatever you want to expand into, which in this case is the understanding that we are not alone. That in itself is an important step toward the readiness mentioned above. Otherwise, there will be no compatibility for our worlds to even begin interaction, because realities are not really places, they are ideas. Some people who mostly focus on the personal growth might say that it is not relevant to know about the ET life, as their inner work and focus transcend those levels and play no role in the expansion of their consciousness. Yes, it can happen that way too, and the key does lie in individual self-development. But in general, in my understanding, it all matters when extending and enriching the frame of our reality, especially when the topic is so closely related to everything that takes place on this planet, from social, technological, and political matters to spiritual ones and more.
When at a shallow level of spiritual awakening, anyone can advance without extraterrestrials, perhaps going in other directions or skipping them entirely, moving into full universal consciousness, for example. But there will come a time when it will start to become ever more difficult to advance in awareness and consciousness without addressing the big elephant in the room, that humans are not alone in the universe, far from it. Extraterrestrials as a subject will always turn out to be a big hole in the awareness and understanding of that person.
We are immersed in ET reality all the time, whether we know it or not. But it is precisely that not knowing that keeps the matrix in place. Knowledge is power. It is ordinance. And with that knowledge comes transformation. On a personal level first, in terms of the more expanded and freer perspectives it brings, and more profoundly on a larger planetary scale. No, not immediately. And yes, you will still have to pay the bills and deal with everyday matters, but our culture will need to adjust and shift, and that will have an impact on you as well. Of course, for this to come into full effect in the most positive way, what would need to take place is not only knowing about ET life, individually and collectively, but also some kind of surrender and/or cooperation on the part of those who have been controlling our planet. And that is where the problem still lies, and we cannot be naive about it. Those who run the show on Earth, on all levels, will eventually need to admit they have been lying to us all for a very long time. That is not going to be easy, and they will not go down without a fight and all kinds of strategies to still come out on top. Do you think that is what they really want? To give up control over this planet after maintaining it for thousands of years as their farm? To own up to the deceptions under which they have kept us? Obviously, that is the last thing they want. And as I mentioned earlier, they fear tremendously that we all wake up and ruin their show. They know it would threaten the status quo of the control system they have been so carefully protecting for thousands of years. They would be finished, or at least heavily disoriented as to what to do next. I believe they already are. And that is where, my friends, you come in. And why it matters that you, your neighbors, family, and colleagues allow that larger reality to become at least a possibility in your perception. ET life matters and impacts Earth on every level. But if we keep burying our heads in the sand, we will be doing exactly what the controllers want. We will deprive ourselves not only of enriching our personal reality with new angles from which to understand life and cope with everyday routines, but also of the possibility of transforming this society into something better, more abundant, and more positive. The more people know about ET life, the harder it will be for the controllers to keep hiding this and many other lies. It weakens them. Something will need to change. The cabal, no matter how deep it is, cannot exist without people. Aren't you tired of wars, conflict, struggles, and scarcity? Of feeling that something is off? Aren't you tired of being lied to? Don't we deserve more? How long will this planet's collective need to suffer and be deprived of access to resources and quality of life so freely available to other star races? ET life is not free of problems. It has its share of issues. And as we discussed previously, many ET races live under their own systems of belief and there is also conflict. But the way this particular planet has been orchestrated surpasses all degrees of struggles out there. You should know this is one of the most difficult planets to be on. Humans deserve relief from this weight, deserve access to truth and other possibilities, and deserve to be offered alternative ways of structuring their culture based on more ethical distribution of resources, access to knowledge, and physical and mental healing and expansion.
Important. None of this can happen for us as an imposition from ET people or as a gift. That is a childlike mentality that we need to grow out of. Ideally, change must emerge naturally as we advance in perception and ethics. Extraterrestrials who are willing to help, as they are all different and have different ideas for Earth, are not our saviors, far from it. And many of them, as explained in the previous video about the Galactic Federation, do not even desire to transform this planet into anything freer, as it is they who manage the show to keep it as it is. But others who do wish to help insist strongly that for the matrix to collapse, the main transformation must come from within first. It must come from the collective daring to open their minds, going beyond their boundaries of artificially imposed realities, transforming into more ethically driven individuals, groups, and societies. It must begin with you. And every one of you, acknowledging there is more, that you perceive it and are willing to co-create it, that you are ready for it and want it, even if it's just holding it in your perception. The matrix is the thoughts and values of the people who live in it. Change your mentality and perception, and the matrix will fall. With internal work, with change in attitude, that will be reflected in the outside world, where you will find people who share your same feeling because they have a compatible frequency. They attract. This will lead to societal change that reflects the new attitude and the new way of seeing and dealing with things. Each person on Earth is the key to change. To say that ET life does not affect us is to retreat back to the hive, back to the wheel the cabal greases daily to keep us in. It is exactly the mindset they want us to have. They made our lives difficult on purpose, precisely so we do not have the strength to look beyond. And no, it will not change anything overnight for you or our society to finally embrace that we are not alone. But it will fuel what you are now allowing yourself to perceive, the interstellar life and its possibilities to manifest. As Yaski is one of my friends up there said, what the collective agrees on as being real or not real, possible or not possible, creates frequencies because thinking amalgamates with that of others, because all are connected. All together reinforce the manifestation of a reality according to their belief. Knowing we are not alone can make you freer as a soul, spiritually and mentally less dependent on control systems set all around you. And it will eventually give way to the collapse of the matrix we are currently under. And for that to happen, all pieces matter. And you, are an important one, because the level of consciousness of Earth is the sum of those living on it. Why are you important? Because you listened, because you cared enough to maintain your attention through this video. And by doing so, you proved that you are aware and ready for more. More people like you are needed. So hold the vision. Even if you still need to go to work tomorrow and pay the bills. I do too. You are not alone. And to feel even less alone, let's join a few of our community members to see how they perceive this subject.
Community Workshop.
Okay, I'm so happy to be here with our community members. Let's start with Scott from the USA.
The reason why it's important to know that ET life exists and is out there in the universe is because, well, you live in the universe. We live on a rock, orbiting a star, just like most of the other life forms in this universe. And it's important to know, what's going on. If you're just a regular dude and you're thinking, oh man, it doesn't affect me at all, you're kind of wrong, because it's, the community that you live in. It's kind of like, when you get new neighbors, you'll kind of want to know what kind of people they are. I remember telling someone one time about something happening on Mars, and they were like, well, why do I care what happens on Mars? We don't live there. And I'm like, well, yeah, you live in space on a rock, and it's your closest neighbor, so you kind of want to know if there's some changes going on there. There is vastly amounts of life out there, and you should be aware of that. That way, one of them shows up and says hi, you're not too surprised.
Oh my gosh, when I first saw that video, I was laughing just the way he said it. If one of them shows up and says hi, so you're not too surprised. Yeah, well, exactly. You need to know what's around you, what's in your community. They are your neighbors, and it does affect us here, what's going on out there. Okay, well, now we have our regular community member, thank you very much, Shariva from the United States.
Whether somebody will benefit from knowing that extraterrestrials exist, I think that solely depends on their level of consciousness, on how much information they've already acquired that would allow them to think outside the conventional paradigm. Because if the person looks around and is very content with the world, then I don't think knowing that ETs exist would benefit you at all. I think the people who that knowledge will benefit are the people who've identified the cracks in the system. And I think those are the people who are no longer hypnotized. And that's the thing, people who are hypnotized are not aware of their hypnosis, that they are not aware that they're constrained mentally. But for the people who are questioning, I think it can be very beneficial, because by understanding that there are forces at work, personalities at work, political factions, all vying for their own agenda, I think understanding that is happening, but at a galactic level, I think it answers a lot of questions for me as to why the world is the way it is. I posed this question to my family, and I got 3 completely different answers. One family member said, if ETs existed and I knew that there was an alien living down the street and they were planning to do something to hurt my community or to cause harm, he said I would want to know, because I would want to be able to fight that. So that's one perspective. Another family member said, if ETs existed and they were here to help us and to give us knowledge and wisdom, and maybe there was a secret organization that I could join and I can help, then yes, I'd want to know, because I'd want to help. And the third person said, I am so busy just raising my family and dealing with my own day-to-day activities. Like, I don't have bandwidth to think about whether ETs exist. It's irrelevant to me. So I saw 3 completely different perspectives, and it demonstrated to me that We are so naive and so sheltered from this information. Like, we are like little children who have never traveled outside of their own home. We don't know what's out there. So people have a lot of misconceptions or ideas or limited kind of ideas about what ETs are. And as a side note for me personally, I had no interest in anything ET related until, a few years ago, after I raised my children and my last kiddo was off to college. Because until then, like that third person that I mentioned, I had no bandwidth in me to explore these concepts.
Well, this was quite interesting. Thanks very much for asking that question to your family members. It's like Shariva says. Most people who are so engrossed in their lives and believe everything the Matrix is saying, not only will they not be interested, but they will not want the change. I actually came across this myself. In my personal life, that the person just said, well, let them come in 100 years. Like, I don't want my life to be different. I don't want Matrix to fall. So it's not just a matter here of offering that to the people, but actually even seeing if they want the change. Many of them do not want the change. So this is a complicated dilemma, which actually we will discuss this later on in the classes. Okay, now we have 3 community members, and this is, I have my notes here, Charlie from the United States, Francesc from Spain, and Christy from New Zealand.
It's not rare. Life isn't rare. It's normal. And I'm not going to be brainwashed into thinking that this one tiny planet is the only place with life. That's absurd. The universe is huge. So my conclusion, of course, is that there are people and beings out there on other planets similar to Earth, and we're being lied to here. Fun fact, who owns every huge observatory on this planet? It's the Vatican. That seems pretty convenient for them to control everything off the planet, huh? If there were aliens everywhere out there, and societies in the millions, would anyone here ever need a religion? Would you feel alone and afraid? I'm not alone, not even close. The fact is, somebody's telling me a bold-faced lie about ETs leads me to one question. Why are they lying to me? And the reason is to control me, control the entire world. And they do it through our perception and beliefs, because that's all they need to do it. In my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, knowing that life is everywhere, and there are other beings and humans, even humans out there, it makes their so-called authority here quite laughable. The lies here are interwoven into every single part of our society, everything. And it's very challenging to sort through this mess to find truth. So how important is the truth for you? The small group who control this planet think of us as cattle. We're nothing to them. Are you okay with being cattle? Or would you like to understand who you are and how powerful you actually are? You're not alone, and you don't need any authority to confirm that for you.
Why should I care about extraterrestrial life? Excellent question. I do care, very much so, because I'm aware that life didn't originate on Earth. I've always known there was something else out there. I always had a feeling this wasn't my place. I know they're lying to us, making us believe there's nothing out there, when in reality, there's so much life and color. Personally, and perhaps in the case of many of you, I can't imagine life on Earth without extraterrestrial life out there. Life on Earth is no exception, and that's how I feel. Life on Earth is a reflection of what's out there.
Why is it important that people know about extraterrestrials? It may not be important to everyone, and it doesn't have to be important to everyone. It's whatever journey that you're on and what you're willing to explore. There are some people that are consciously or unconsciously choosing not to look into this or, have this part of their awakening journey. It's basically very personal. But for me personally, I found it important because to me, it's very important to understand the bigger picture so that I can get through my life here on this planet in a way that I wasn't sure if I was able to do previously. I'm able to understand in a much more clear way what is happening, what kind of matrix we're living in. I find it's very much part of spirituality as a whole. And so when I started to realize the bigger picture of how extraterrestrials fit in and marry and align with many other points of my spirituality, it really did make things easier for me. So why is it important? Well, only you will be able to answer that.
Thank you so much, guys. Well, yeah. First of all, we've been lied to. We are being continuously lied to. So don't you want to know? Don't you want to understand the bigger picture? So yeah, it makes perfect sense for me. And now we have two people who are bringing up the alternative models to organize the society and different types of solutions to different types of problems that this could bring. So here we have Andreas from Brazil, and Testigel, this is by audio, from Spain.
Would you like to find out that the 9-to-5 work week is by design and there's no need to struggle every day to just pay your bills and taxes? Would you like to fix the energy problem we have here on our planet? Would you like to know about the massive brainwashing going on here? And would you like to have additional knowledge to don't become victim of manipulation again? Would you like to learn about advanced technologies to enable you to space travel, for interstellar space travel? Would you like to extend your lifespan knowing that there are cures for many incurable diseases? But ask yourself honestly if you are ready for the bigger picture. Because knowledge liberates, but it's also a responsibility. When the reality around us is not as we are told that it is, how is it then? It's just like when you climb a mountain and you see the world around you with a higher perspective. Then you will begin to understand that everything you lived before is just an insignificant event in space and time. And that you are destined to rise above yourself, destined to fly.
For some time now, especially young people, have been finding things wrong with the world. They try to find new ways of doing things and making the world a better place. Then, when they try to implement this new way of living, this new way of doing things, they start discussing with older people. They start debating with the people who now hold higher positions. They try to tell them that things can be done better, and they start to encounter completely irrational resistance. They try to reason with them, but it doesn't work. Those people continue to cling to their way of doing things. They don't want to change. They react according to what they know, to their predefined response, to what has worked for them their whole lives. So you try changing things that are even more important. You try to prevent wars in the world. You try to change the thought patterns that lead to wars or to economic imbalances in order to create a fairer world, and you encounter resistance. Money cannot be eliminated. Wars will always exist. Everything will continue as it always has. If extraterrestrials existed, if there was a disclosure, undoubtedly, for these people who only respond in a predefined way, a predetermined answer, based on what they know. What do they know? Conquest. There are conquests in the world. Some countries conquer others. It has always been this way. So, if there are extraterrestrials, the next predetermined answer they're going to give you is that they've come to conquer us. There's no money in their world. Because if you tell them they want to function without money, the next thing they'll call you is a communist. That's their next predefined response. So, it wouldn't hurt to get to know them, the ETs, and be able to show that as a reality. That things can be done differently. To tell those people, look, they don't have wars and they do it this way. They don't have money and they do it this way. And then be able to tell them, well, it turns out it can be done. Knowing about extraterrestrials and why I should care, well, that would be the reason to find better models that we can apply to our world. And try to do things in a better way here. Because changing things right now, as they are, seems almost impossible. That's why. And to get to know the neighbors.
Oh yes, the testing girl brought up a very good point that many of these people that we are calling matrix people will always be responding with the same as if programmed responses. We're actually going to deal with this much later in the classes. There's going to be a surprise around this subject, and I don't want to bring up the surprise right now. But yeah, it's important. And also, we're always approaching everything with our human mentality. So if we are conquering the world, well, will they be conquering us? That's the mentality. And this is also something very important that we have to go through in the future. There's just so many different points to discuss in the future. It's just too much. And I know I'm going very slowly with these videos, by the way. Sorry about that. But the reason is because I'm doing this in 3 languages. In case you didn't know, I have a Spanish one, I have a French one. So I do 3 channels, and it takes very long time to actually present this video, to make it happen, to organize the material, edit, and I am totally by myself here, with the exception of Alec, who is helping with the studios and thumbnails and things like that. And then I also have another channel, which is my main work. Many of you know which one. And that one I also have in 2 languages, so that's why. But we will go through all these important subjects. And now we have, finally, Robert. Robert is a fundamental piece of our community, and I left it for the end. I'm not going to comment this because it's just a perfect summary for the subject.
For many people, the question is legitimate. So what? I still have to go to work tomorrow and pay bills. But that's precisely the key point. If we accept that we are not alone in the universe, one of the deepest foundations of the Earth matrix collapses. The idea that Earth is the center, that everything began here, and that our possibilities are limited to this small framework. This simple change has enormous consequences, even for the most ordinary person. First, on a psychological and existential level, knowing that life is abundant and that other intelligences exist challenges the narratives of scarcity, competition, and fear in which we live. Suddenly, human history ceases to be an isolated accident and becomes part of something much larger. This changes how a person sees themselves, no longer just as a cog in the machine working to survive, but as a consciousness experiencing something within a much larger context. Second, on a cultural and social level, the concealment of the extraterrestrial phenomenon is not just about hiding aliens. It's about hiding alternatives, other ways of organizing societies, other understandings of science, energy, consciousness, and life itself. If this were made public without filters, many of the structures that seem inevitable today, working just to pay the bills, accepting unjust systems as normal, would begin to feel like imposed lessons, not natural laws. Third, on a personal and spiritual level, extraterrestrial contact is intimately linked to the questions every human being eventually asks themselves. What am I? Where do I come from? Is there anything after this? So, how does this affect someone who has to go to work tomorrow? It affects them because it changes the meaning of their life. Even if their routines don't change overnight, just as a spiritual awakening doesn't automatically eliminate bills, but profoundly changes how a person lives, makes decisions, and relates to the world. Extraterrestrial life matters because it changes everything, even if not immediately or dramatically. It matters because it threatens the artificial limits of what we believe is possible. And that's precisely what they have tried the hardest for the people to discover. It's not a question of believing in extraterrestrials. It's a question of daring to broaden the framework in which we understand reality and our place in it.
Yes, exactly. Thank you everybody for your participation, and meet me now for the final comments, and you'll see what the next class is. So this is it for this episode. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I really hope you stick around for the next one, as it is of vital importance as well. We dedicated this class to looking at the subject of ET presence and whether or not it is important in our lives. We established that it is indeed relevant, at least from our perspective. But is just knowing enough? What is next then? Are they going to tell us the truth? They, meaning governments? Will they admit we have been lied to? Should we even expect anything from them? Or should we consider this from entirely different perspectives and sources? Well, these are important questions. Let's talk about the so-called official disclosure so many people are anxiously waiting for. What do we think about that in Space Academy? Would that be a reliable route for ET presence to be revealed to the public? This is a huge and complicated subject, I will not lie, with many dimensions. And I will try to break them down, at least some of them, in the next video. Thank you again, and see you then. And for now, I'm going down to the city again. See you in the next one.
Bongo, come on, let's go!
Class summary. Most people living on Earth do not stop to think about ET life. The way the system on Earth has been designed, it is understandable. They have been kept in isolation on purpose. ET life impacts individual and collective reality on all levels, from economical, political, scientific, to psychological and spiritual, and more. Accepting collectively we are not alone in the universe is threatening the status quo of the terrestrial matrix. Once we understand we have been lied to, the matrix will crumble. You may think knowing about the ETs will not affect you personally, but once it is massively embraced by individuals such as yourself, life on Earth as we know it will change. Areas such as religions, technology, and how we organize our society will be heavily affected once we open up to the ET reality, and new models to structure our world may be adopted. The main change to adopt such new models, though, must come from within us, as we expand our minds and grow ethically as individuals and nations. To say that ET life does not affect us is to retreat back to the hive, back to the wheel the cabal greases daily to keep us in. You may want to focus only on inner growth and expansion of consciousness, but at some point, acknowledging the ET reality will become a part of the process.